What's better than this? Quality comic creators creating quality comics is a beautiful thing to behold. Howdy, I'm Kurt Williams, and today we're talking about issue 1 of Ghost Machine by, Ghost Machine. This is a new imprint of Image Comics that is fully creator-owned and fully creator-shared. And Ghost Machine has some really big-name artists involved, such as Geoff Johns, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, Bryan Hitch, Reis, Peter J. Tomasi, and Brad Anderson. And some others that I haven't heard of, but I'm sure they're equally important. So this issue acts as kind of an introduction to the universe for people who aren't familiar with it. We've already had a couple series from Ghost Machine, like Geiger and Junkyard Joe, which were both written by Geoff Johns and drawn by Gary Frank, and I have been picking up every issue of those series because I love Gary Frank and I love Geoff Johns and I love the concepts that they have in those series. Geiger is about a radioactive man who's walking the wasteland of America with his two-headed dog, and Junkyard Joe is about a retired cartoonist who used to make a cartoon during Vietnam that was kind of a mix of Beetle Bailey and Peanuts that featured a robot soldier, and even though the cartoonist convinced himself that the robot wasn't real, it turns out that he actually was real. And both those series were great. I loved them. They had this great blend of history and imagination and familiar tropes that were taken in fresh new directions. It's really just great comics. So in this issue, we get introduced to all the other titles that are going to start coming out soon, and they look more or less pretty freaking good. We'd been getting teasers for this character, the Redcoat, during the previous series, and I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it because I like comics that have a lot of history, but it's kind of an aesthetic that I'm not super interested in, so it was all going to come down to the writing and whether or not that was interesting enough to keep me sticking around. And let me tell you, we only get 5 pages of Redcoat in this issue, but it is definitely enough to get me hooked. The dialogue is really witty, the storytelling is quick, it's very interesting stuff. And I can't believe I almost forgot to mention, that's Bryan Hitch drawing the Redcoat, by the way, so that series is probably going to be awesome. Next, we get a sneak peek of this upcoming series called Rook Exodus by Geoff Johns and Jason Fabok, and it's kind of a spacey, farming, heist-type adventure story. I love Jason Fabok's work. It's so clear and so detailed at the same time, and they've got this really unique imagery to the story, and the premise is super cool. I'm really excited about Rook Exodus. Then we get a sneak peek of this story called The Rockefellers by Peter J. Tomasi and Francis Manapul. And on the surface level, it's kind of this cute reference to the Jetsons, but there's a lot of depth there. Basically, this family's in a witness protection program, but instead of being moved to a different place and given different names, they've been moved to a different time period. So they're 300 years in the past, which is our present, and they don't know if they've been followed or not, but in the meantime, they're just dealing with, family matters. And I'm pretty sure that's a similar premise to the Time Before Time series that came out, but I only collected the first, 5 issues of that before I gave up on it. The art style here isn't my favorite, but it's really clean and colorful and inviting and easy to look at. And at the very end, we see them watching a Junkyard Joe cartoon, which is a really great reminder that this is a shared universe. All of these characters take place in the same universe, just like a Marvel comic would. And I just think that's really neat. It doesn't have to be anything more than just Easter eggs for those of us reading all of the series, but for people who aren't reading all the other series, at least the world looks fleshed out and real. Then we get a sneak peek of this series Hornsby and Halo, which is also written by Peter J. Tomasi and illustrated by Peter Heinsberg? I don't know, somebody I've never heard of. But the art is really clean, easy to look at. It's clearly geared towards kids, and that's great, because Ghost Machine makes a point of saying these aren't just comics for adults, they're also comics for kids, which just helps to further round out the universe, I think. So in Hornsby and Halo, we're following these 2 kids who are on rival baseball teams, and they turn out to basically be like a demon and an angel. And this one guy who's probably a demon in hiding, I don't know, is keeping tabs on them and reporting back to his boss, who's the devil? A demon? I don't know. It's kind of a Screw Tape Letters situation where you've got one demon reporting back to another demon on how it's going, influencing people in the real world. But I think it's also setting itself up to discuss nurture versus nature. If you start out as an angel, can you be influenced by a fallen world to become more like a demon? So even though this is a series geared towards kids, I think it has a lot of potential to talk about important issues with lots of depth. And then we get to this preview of the upcoming series Hyde Street by Geoff Johns and Reis, and I'm really excited about this one. From what I can tell, it's kind of an ice cream man sort of situation where there's just this place in every city where weird things happen that might be involved with the end of the world. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those series where you have a new weird thing happening every issue, and maybe there's a subplot going on that comes up after maybe 5 or 6 issues. But however they do it, it looks amazing, and Reis's art is gorgeous to look at as always, and the dialogue is super fresh, fresh and funny. It's just really fun to read so far. And that alone is impressive because these are like sneak peeks of all these stories. The one for Geiger doesn't do Geiger itself justice. It's just a few pages to get us used to the character and the situation he's in. So I don't know if these other sneak peeks are as good as the full comics that are going to come out, but they're already starting off on a great foot. One of the things that I got really excited about right before the Hyde Street preview was this double page spread of fake advertisements that looks like something you'd see out of the 70s or the 80s, and it is so well done. And if you read all these little blurbs, they're hilarious. That is one of my favorite things to see in comics, when you have those self-referential fake ads. I can't remember her name right now, but she wrote the series Man-Eaters and Spy Island, and those series are just that front to back, and they are so detailed and funny, and they're amazing. And the reason I like that stuff so much is because it's clearly nerdy stuff being made by nerds for nerds. And that's what Ghost Machine is looking like it's gonna be. Comics made by comic nerds for comic nerds, but they're also super accessible. Don't not read this just because you're not a comic nerd. These are some of the top creators in the industry working on really fresh, exciting, new ideas. So look, they've got advertisements for the collected volumes of Geiger and Junkyard Joe. Go out and get them. They're great comics. And I have a lot of faith that series like Red Coat and Rook Exodus and the Rockefellers and Hornsby and Halo and Hyde Street are all going to be really great. So this isn't really a comic, it's more of like a catalog or a teaser issue, so I can't really give it a rating, but I'm really excited about all the stuff that's going to be coming out soon. So if you don't get this, at least keep your eyes out for the great series that are about to come out from Ghost Machine. And they're not paying me to say this, alright? I only endorse things if I think they're really cool. And I think Ghost Machine is really cool. And that's all I've got to say about that. Did you read it? What do you think?